record on this computer. Okay, so we are live now. We are City on the Edge. We are a podcast that tells Albuquerque and New Mexico stories, a lot of times history, but also sometimes just things we think about talking about.
Right.
So I'm Ty Bannerman. You guys introduce yourselves.
I'm Nora Hickey.
And I'm Mike Smith.
Yeah, and Nora, we thought we were going to lose Nora because she moved to Fort Collins, Colorado, right? And we're like, oh, we can't really do the show if you live in Fort Collins, Colorado, because we're in Albuquerque and we're going to do like live events, and we meet up in bars and talk about our episodes, and then suddenly nobody ever leaves their house anymore, so it doesn't matter at all. And so you may as well have never moved. And I think that's my silver lining from the COVID-19 situation.
It is good.
Oh, thanks. Mine too.
Yeah, so it's good to know that even though people are sick and not doing great, that at least we can pretend that Nora still lives in Albuquerque. Okay, I am now going to ask you, Nora, can you verify that we're actually like streaming on the page now?
Yes, I see Ty Bannerman is live now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're doing this. So what we're doing today is we're going to talk about the Estufa, a rather mysterious building on UNM campus. But before we get into that, we're going to briefly touch on the current state of affairs in Albuquerque. Everybody, how about you guys? Let's start with Mike. Yeah. Tell me one thing that's going on right now that's on your mind.
Well, federal goons, an unmarked police force comprised of various different military and police organizations, including Border Patrol, are on their way here and to other American cities, much like what's been going on in Portland, Oregon, which, like, if you're just watching cable news and things like that, you really don't have any idea what's going on. I would really recommend looking around online, be on Twitter, be on social media, at least Facebook. But Twitter is much faster with the stuff and seems to have more things. But even there, things disappear. And but just the craziest clips of people just being grabbed and thrown into unmarked vans, and people screaming, "Where are you taking our friend? Where are you taking her?" And they're like, "If you follow us, we'll shoot you." I mean, just these horrifying things. Like, are you even cops? One person being arrested said, "Was this a militia?" Like, they didn't even know. Was this just some hateful right-wing militia? It could be, because they're apparently allowed at things with their guns, despite the no guns posters at Juneteenth and at other events in town.
So that's obviously like self-evidently crazy, right? But this is like, the more you think about it, the crazier it seems, because, okay, they rolled it out in Portland. There's been these protests going on. Trump's made a big deal out of the stuff going on in Portland. Okay. Then they announced the other cities, Chicago and Albuquerque. We haven't had like anything, like, people have been doing demonstrations and stuff, I assume, for, since the statue went down, but it's been really like quiet here.
Yeah.
What in God's name made him choose Albuquerque?
Yeah. There was some property damage on May 31st, and
May 31st.
Like toward the end of May, a little bit in the beginning of June. And honestly, riots are the voice of the unheard, as Martin Luther King said. When the people in a system don't feel like they have any investment in it or engagement, things like that can happen. But even those quote unquote riots were just a peaceful protest with hundreds of people there for most of the event. In fact, for so much of the event that most of the press left. And then the small group of people that stuck around and, made some political damage, which I which I am not totally against, because you can't hold Capitol completely hostage in a situation. Otherwise, the owners of the Capitol will always have the upper hand. It has to be on the negotiating table. And I just don't see that breaking a window is the same as hurting a person.
Yeah, well, I'll say it probably sucks your window getting broken, but
sure, yeah. But
it also sucks when you're the one, who got shot.
Yeah, but Minneapolis is the city that's getting their police department disbanded and new things.
Yeah,
they're the ones that burned it down. So it
That's
actually,
true.
direct action gets effects too.
True.
Does the Democratic mayor and
just
governor
gotta-
have anything to do with it?
With
Here
the
in
sending of the
Albuquerque?
federal troops.
Oh, I mean,
here,
with
for
him
sure.
sending the federal troops.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
he's targeting Democratic-led municipalities.
How is that
Yeah.
even? That's so that's not legal any.
Yeah, if nobody stops
It's-
him, then I guess it's kind of
Yeah.
legal.
Have
It's
you?
right.
I
But-
heard from some source they're in. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I wanna
I don't want to get too bogged down in this.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of great stuff about this. If you go to KUNM, my employer,
Yes.
their show Your New Mexico Government and
So
the
good.
No More Normal show,
Mm.
which airs on
Mm.
Sundays now. You can go to
Yeah.
KUNM, and they have a lot of great reporting on this. So I
Good.
suggest you to check that out.
Okay.
What about you, Nora? What have you been noticing? What's on your mind about Albuquerque? I mean, you're in Fort Collins, so I don't know how much time you spend thinking about Albuquerque.
Well, Mike
just in
stole the
general.
big one, the federal agents and the presence of, more aggression in the city. Someone posted, I feel like it was on Facebook, but sort of it was a tongue-in-cheek video saying, look at how dangerous Albuquerque was. And it was of downtown, and it was basically a ghost town, it wasn't dangerous. Nothing was on fire. But I noticed, as someone who used to live downtown as recently as February, it looked pretty empty. And I was just so curious, what does it feel like out in the streets of Albuquerque? And I don't want it to feel busy at the same time, but it just seems so empty.
Yeah.
Definitely emptier. Yeah.
Well, that's no one's leaving their house, really. I mean, certainly not going to bars and restaurants because they're closed.
Well, it does ebb and flow, and lately it's been a lot more. People are getting so restless, and it's been so hot.
Where do you feel like people are congregating? Like, is it the Cheddars, Bubba's? I feel like when I lived there, they always had the huge crowd.
The patio dining?
Yeah.
Because our indoor dining is shut down now, but
okay.
I haven't been to a restaurant or a brewery since this whole thing started.
Good for you, man.
I've picked up like a growler from the brewery down the street kind of thing, but never not actually sitting down. So I feel like I don't know where people are congregating. I do know that during that brief period of time where dining was open back up again, like if you drove down Central at like dinner time, you would see people in all the restaurants. Like they were there.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel comfortable because I'm like, oh, this seems like it could be dangerous and might end at any moment. And indeed, here we are. So
well, keep us updated on Albuquerque. Your co-host and our listeners. What about you, Ty?
What am I noticing? Okay, I'm noticing that my beard is being eaten by Route 66 because I still can't figure out how to do a good green screen for my virtual background.
This is so metaphorical, though.
Just own it, man.
It's consuming you know?
Just becoming Route 66.
Be the Route 66 photo you were always meant to be.
Yeah, but this is like one of the most famous photos of Albuquerque ever. It's Ernst Haas did it in the late 60s. It's right down the street from where I live. The first national bank or whatever that is back there, that's where my grandmother started working when she first came to Albuquerque. And we live right around back over here somewhere. And that's where my grandmother first lived when she came to Albuquerque too. So this is kind of a good view of Bannerman's Albuquerque in some ways.
Nice.
All right.
Does it look the same?
No. Well, there's not nearly as many like signs and stuff, and they're all different. But like, let's see. This
that one's still there. That mobile one,
is still here. And
I don't think that Kruger one is.
The Aztec Motel sign is still there, although the Aztec Motel did get torn down.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Mauro.
It's good to see you.
Hi, it's so nice to see you.
Right,
nice editing job on No More Normal, Ty. It was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm learning to edit, believe it or not. I'm not learning to video live stream though. I haven't figured that part out yet.
I think you're doing good. You're doing
Okay.
just as good as any of us.
Sounds
Sorry
about
to
right.
interrupt. It's so nice to see you.
You can join
Good
us.
to see you
Bye.
too.
What?
All right.
No, it's okay.
Well, let's proceed to the show and tell portion. I know Nora, you have something to show and tell.
Yeah. I was told it was a show and tell episode of some sort. So I thought of
I'm going to share the screen.
oh, thank you. It kind of came from a sad place where I had read, due to COVID, I think it was 12 out of 13 nuns had passed
Oh wow.
at a place, a nunnery, I don't even know the words, in Michigan.
Okay.
But it just started getting me thinking about nuns and their place in the world currently. And then it kind of sparked this memory of reading about Elvis in Albuquerque. And it will all come together, the nuns in Albuquerque. But
And
basically, his first show, and he only played 2 shows in Albuquerque, one in 56 and one in 1972. And also, this was pretty cool because he only played 3 southwestern cities besides Las Vegas, Tucson, Phoenix, and Albuquerque. Although Amarillo too. Is that a southwest city? Texas doesn't count. But
it counts.
anyways, yeah.
I don't know what it counts as. It's Texas.
I can't remember how I came across this on the internet back
So cool.
like 2 years ago or something. But basically, he played the sold out show at the Armory, which was at the corner of 5th and Silver downtown. And apparently was this place, the hottest place in town before other event venues were built.
There's a picture of it here. This is
Wow.
what it looked like in apparently 1908.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's where Bose Brothers Brewery is now on 5th and Silver.
It's a parking garage. It's that weird parking garage. There's a picture at the bottom of this page.
Oh yeah. Okay. You're right. Yeah, there it is. That's what's there now.
That's
Fifth
what's
Street.
there.
I like that one. Yeah.
Sad, right?
Yeah.
That's where
There's some good
Elvis.
downtown buildings.
But at least they did something creative with.
Yeah.
It's got wiggly parts. I like that.
Yeah. And the whole castle obsession that Albuquerque had was like an obsession with Old Spain or something too, so.
Yeah.
And it's an armory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He played here.
Yes, he played here. And if you can, on the screen that Ty has up, the first sentence was an interesting one of the paragraph below. Oh, go down a little bit again. There, Bill Privetti introduced Elvis on stage, and he recalled that the Armory that night was a melting pot of Anglo, Black, and Hispanic youths. He said, "You never saw these people together, but here they were." So it just drew this huge crowd of young women in particular. So the story that made the paper the next day, and it's described in this article, "Singer's Kiss Leaves Girl 13 Real Shook," in the Tribune. Basically, some girls were there to see him. They went backstage or outside to see if they could see him. He gave a few a kiss on the cheek, and they were friends from the Catholic school St. Vincent Academy, which is no longer standing either. Right. And so he gave everyone these cheek kisses, but then he gave this one girl, 13-year-old, a real kiss. That's how her friends described it.
It says, quote, "really kissed," end quote, by Presley. So that's a little, how old was he at this point?
He was 21.
And he had a thing for 13-year-olds, right? Like, wasn't Priscilla 13 when he married her?
Whoa.
That's
crazy.
But
that Peter Guralnick 2-volume set about Elvis's life is amazing. And his brother owns the Outpost.
Really?
The Outpost?
Tom Guralnick. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Jazz Club.
Cool. But even kind of more interesting. So She gets kissed by Elvis. Her mom calls the Tribune with this story, like, like her daughter got really kissed by Elvis. So this piece, right here is published. The St. Vincent's nuns see it, and they call the mom, and they're like, why would you let your daughter kiss this strange older man? And the mom is like, I wish it was me that he kissed, like I was jealous.
Oh my gosh. There's a lot going on in this story, Nora.
Yeah. But Carla gets kicked out of St. Vincent's. She's in 8th grade. She's in the, near the end of 8th grade. It's in April, but she gets kicked out for the rest of the year and then goes to Valley High School.
Well, that's always good to get kicked out of a private religion.
Yeah.
IMO.
And why would they punish her? That's bizarre.
I know.
Yeah, that's lame.
Sisters.
Okay. So the school is gone.
And that was at, I believe, Lomas and 6th. Do you know where that bank is by that Subway on Lomas downtown?
Yeah, I think so. Like Compass Bank or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I was at a party where someone was playing this game where they were like just saying random intersections in town and asking you to remember a detail of it or something. It was really hard. Really
Interesting.
You would do well at that. So that's that's
the show and tell. Okay, that's
show and tell.
What a strange little drama of 1956. I'd imagine I'd like to think that she was happier to have seen Elvis than to continue going to that school.
It sounded like she was so happy.
All right.
In that article, yeah.
Hey, are there any? Is there anything we need to? We're gonna check on the comments from time to time, and let us know if you have any questions or anything that you want to say, and we'll happily try to answer your questions or respond to your comments like 2 minutes later because of the delay.
Oh wow!
And I see we already have one. It says. This is from our friend Holly Von Winkle. Will you be setting it on fire in a historical reenactment? She's referring to the Estufa, which I'm about to start talking about.
Oh.
Due to the number of times it was set on fire. And I would just like to state very clearly, I am not setting it on fire. I'm not planning to set anything on fire. Yeah, it's made of adobe.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to come up. I got these pages of notes. All right, should we jump into it then?
Yeah.
Okay,
Reveal
I'm going to
the
secrets of the Estufa will now commence in just a minute here because I got to figure out how to screen share again, even though I literally just did it. There we go. And the Estufa.
Wow.
So, isn't it beautiful?
So you can go in that.
No.
Oh.
No, I mean, some people can, yes. You, Nora Hickey, and you, Mike Smith, and me, Ty Bannerman, are not allowed. In fact, we may have been allowed at a certain point in our lives, Mike, but Nora, by virtue of your assigned gender and or whatever, you cannot.
Right.
You are specifically prohibited. So if you've lived in Albuquerque for any amount of time, you have undoubtedly driven by this a few times. Maybe you even noticed it, but I don't think most people necessarily notice it. It doesn't exactly like cry out for attention. It sort of fades into the background these days.
Yeah.
Is that a wall?
What is it, a wall? Maybe if you notice it, you think that's weird, and then you go about your day. Or, you just kind of like wonder what it is idly. I spent literally years thinking that it was probably a shed for lawnmowers. Like, I just figured this was the groundskeeper's shed at UNM.
Yeah, it's so unassuming.
Right. So that's not what it is. It is, in fact, a reproduction of a kiva, the Puebloan religious, religious building, extends underground. And it, like a kiva, it extends underground a story or so. And there's a chamber in there that's used by the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity as their secret meeting room. It's closed off completely to outsiders. It is especially closed off to women.
Still
So,
to this day.
yep, still to this day. As far as I know, I don't believe that's changed. Some Pi Kappa Alpha's status may have changed on campus. I wasn't really quite able to nail down exactly where they're at right now. But we are going to take a look at this place's origins when it didn't look so much like that, but it looked like this. This is what it looked like right around 1910.
Better.
Yeah.
Better. Yeah. So we're just a little bit southeast of the view that I was just showing. And you can see there's like nothing out there. Nothing at all. And its origins are with... What's that?
I'm just amazed. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You're right. You can see that around the edges.
So that would have been University going up there,
Right.
and then over here that'd be Redondo and
which
Martin
might have
Luther
still been
King.
Plum Street at that time. When did that name change?
I'm not sure. I
Oh.
mean, I don't even know if there is a street there at this point.
Oh wow, yeah, you might
in
be
this
right.
picture. Another
Yeah.
thing you should notice is that you can't quite tell in this picture, but see this slopey part?
Mhm.
It's more like a ramp now, and before
Yeah.
it was more like a staircase, and
Mm.
that was because the only way to get inside was a trap door on top. That's no longer the case. There's now a door in the side of it, but for some number of years, it was like this. So we're going to go back to 1898 when the University of New Mexico was founded. This is a picture of what most people at that time, like if you knew UNM prior to like 1910, this is probably what you would have envisioned it as. This like weird kind of like Victorian brick building.
No way.
Yeah, this is Hodgen Hall. It still stands, but it does not look like this at all anymore. And this is what the campus of UNM looked like right around the time that the like right before the time that the Estufa was built. And again, you see these
Victorian, yeah.
Victorian style buildings. It's
which one is Hodgen Hall where you defended your dissertation?
right there. That's this one. This is the oldest building on campus, the original campus building. This is where the entire school was for a couple decades.
That's wild.
And then these other buildings were added later. It's possible. I was trying to look at this thing over here. I think that this might be one of the first dormitories, which was actually done in the Pueblo style. What do they call it? Pueblo revival style.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, this was the senior cheer. I just thought this was hilarious. Like,
no great hats.
You guys should have put a little more work into that
Oh
cheer.
my God.
Who wrote it? Why wouldn't you take credit for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It has a title.
But at this point, there was like maybe 100 students going to UNM, and they had started to form little cliques. Not exactly. They would sometimes call themselves societies, but they were more or less just like people who hung out together.
Huh.
And the first one that gained like any real prominence was this group of young men who they like to eat lunch together. This was the basis for their society.
That's pretty innocent.
It's very innocent. They called themselves the Yum Yum Boys. And their other activity that they like to do besides eating lunch was stealing lunch from other people and eating them beneath the Yum Yum trees, which is what they called some willows that were planted near Hodgen Hall, presumably right around here. And finally, their favorite thing to do was to write little articles in the brand new baby. It's not even the Lobo at this point. It's called the Mirage. We talked about this in the last episode. The Mirage, and then also UNM Weekly. They like to write articles about the Yum Yum Boys' adventures, like boating down the river Styx, and they would write songs about themselves, and they were just super into themselves.
Oh, it's that age, you know.
Yeah. Here's an early article. This one's actually a first-hand account of the Yum Yum Boys, written by somebody sort of complaining about them. The Yum Yums, this would have been probably about 1903 or so. The Yum Yums seem to have settled down to a little peace over the last few days. After the high pitch to which our nerves have been screwed for some weeks by the exciting doings of this mysterious society, their cessation of activities is a great relief. The rules of this society, if it has any, seem to be that any member at a loss to know how to proceed should raise a rumpus. The rest of the time, they put in writing petitions. I don't know what they're writing petitions for, but I like that that's their two things that they do. The signal for a Yum Yum meeting is the announcement of a senior class meeting. Immediately, the Yum Yum sign makes its appearance on the blackboard, and the members all proceed into the lunchroom and howl. We wonder whether this mysterious organization is on the point of expiring or whether it will revive again next fall. So that was the Yum Yum Boys. And point in fact, they did not in fact expire. And that's because this guy came to town in 1901. This is Professor William G. Tite. He's a geologist from Ohio. And he abandoned his wife and children to become the third president of UNM. We don't know why, like what went down with his wife and children, but family reminiscence says that basically his wife was just like, go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. No. And then he was like, but I get to be president of the university. So he came without her. She supposedly kept setting his place at the table until 1905, when the divorce was actually formalized.
Wow.
So there's a bit of a weird scandal already in this guy's story. Despite that, he was hugely popular with the students at UNM.
And he planted all those trees at the corner of University and Central, right? Heights Grove.
The southwest corner of University and Central. There's a clump of trees right in front of Hodge and Hall. That's the trees he brought down from the Sandias with students and planted out there.
Dang.
Many years, more than 1 year, right?
Yeah. I think it was kind of his Arbor Day activity while he was president here. I think he was president for 9 years. But he was also, what's that?
So next time we're appreciating those trees, we have to thank this guy for abandoning his family.
Thank you, Tide. I'm sure your children forgave you eventually, maybe.
No, that's it's horrible. I'm not thanking him for that.
So he was a big believer in the fraternity system, and in fact was a member of a fraternity himself. So he like bought the whole idea that somehow it like helped make a boy into a man and all that stuff. So when he came across the Yum Yum Boys in 1901, he thought, maybe I could take the clay of these rambunctious youth and form them into an official Greek fraternal order. And he kind of cozied up to them, and he made them a deal. The deal was, if they would become a fraternity instead of just these lunch-stealing weirdos, then he would help them.
In Albuquerque.
Then he would help them build a meeting hall. So they agreed to do that. At this point, no fraternity would have them. Like, they couldn't be a member of a fraternity like on the national level. So they formed their own. Because like UNM was just this kind of podunk college out in the middle of the dusty plains, you know?
Yeah.
Or whatever you call the area around UNM at that point. Plains, hills, sand hills. That's what it would be. So they formed themselves as the Tri-Alphas, which was a New Mexico, and in fact UNM only fraternity. Here they are. Alpha. And you know, just to show how cool they were, they got the skull and crossbones right there. And that was good enough. So Tite then helped them to build their secret meeting hall. And this kind of fit into his idea of what the University of New Mexico's architecture should be. Like, he was not a big fan of this. He thought this just looked like everywhere else in the United States, probably looked a lot like Ohio, where he came from. He was a big fan of Pueblo architecture and the architecture of New Mexico's like Spanish descended people. He liked adobe, and he thought this is like a really interesting, unique style. Why don't we like start making the university in this style as well? And so he helped them build the Estufa on the model of a kiva, the sacred ceremonial building at Pueblos.
Wow.
And that was completed in 1908. Right around the same time, he remodeled Hodgen Hall into the adobe style building that we know today. And then he had those dormitories built as well. And that was kind of his big mark at the university and probably in the world, really. 1 year after this building was completed, Tite got fired. Rumors reported in Albuquerque newspapers from the regent's displeasure with Tite's vision of campus architecture. Like, this was not necessarily a popular thing.
But he like shaped it to be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and he helped. I mean, he was literally out there building the adobe bricks for this thing and you know, mixing the adobe for
Interesting.
for Hodgen Hall. So go ahead.
Oh no, I just remembered at one point he owned Carlito Springs up in the mountains too.
Did he really?
With Hodge, another UNM.
For Hodgen.
Hodgen, probably.
Hodgen. That was it. Was they called it Hodge Tite Springs when they owned it, and it's on a couple of maps.
No kidding.
Yeah. But,
yeah, that's
yeah,
an
Bob
open
Cooper
space. So interesting. He lived with Hodgen, you know, while he was single in Albuquerque.
So really?
Okay,
well that explains all that.
So one of the rumors about his firing was because of the architecture. The other rumor was, quote, because he took women on unchaperoned buggy rides into the Sandia Mountains.
Oh wow.
Dude, you can't do that.
Apparently not, especially if you're still married. So I don't know at what point he started the unchaperoned buggy rides.
Yeah.
But,
I wonder if they were students or faculty or something.
It said that they were not university students, but
that's good.
But you can't, in that era, you couldn't context. You could not take, you should have gotten married.
Yeah.
If you did that, seriously.
Yeah.
Now he did get married to one of his buggy ride partners.
Really?
Yeah, he did in 1909, like right before he got fired. And apparently the icing on the cake, like people were unhappy about the unchaperoned buggy rides, but apparently what really pushed him over the edge was he fired 2 UNM professors whom he considered incompetent, and he didn't get regent approval to do that. So that's what really did.
Oh, so he crossed the board of regents.
He crossed the board of regents, which you should never do. So he got fired, and then a year later he died, and it's kind of unclear as to why he died.
Wow.
And then even like more bizarre is all his correspondence and papers perished in a fire. Like they were destroyed in a fire soon after that. Dude. So that's why we don't know a lot about Tite.
Wow.
But yeah, back to the Tri-Alphas. With him dead, the Tri-Alphas continued using the Estufa for a time. But in 1914, they were finally accepted by a fraternity, Pi Kappa Alpha. They became the first nationally affiliated fraternity in New Mexico. And this was at about the time that they installed the side door on the Estufa, which was a bank vault door. And there's a rumor that the Pikes, as they're known, raided Isleta Pueblo and stole a ladder, or according to another source, artifacts, and stashed them there in the Estufa.
Not cool.
Here's the beginning of Pi Kappa Alpha. This is an interesting thing. He's sitting in a boulder that's been shaped into like a throne. I wonder what happened to that.
We need that for sitting on the edge.
I should be sitting in that right now.
Yes.
Bring it with you wherever you go, rolling it like Sisyphus.
So then things get kind of quiet for the Estufa until the 30s. And then they get really weird and noisy because a group called Theta Nu Epsilon appears on the scene at UNM. Have you ever heard of this? These guys?
No.
This is a fascinating rabbit hole. If you have any time, look into Theta Nu Epsilon. They are an illegal fraternity on most campuses. They do exist legitimately on a few, but apparently that's like considered not the real Theta Nu Epsilon. That the real Theta Nu Epsilon is the illegal fraternity.
Wow.
It's the legal ones doing all the binge drinking and date raping, right? Half the time.
Oh, I'd say it's both legal and illegal would be my guess.
Why have that on campus? I've never understood what fraternities contribute to campus.
Yeah. Well, apparently these guys were bad enough that in the 30s they were declared illegal.
I didn't even know you could have an illegal fraternity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that term really before.
Right. There's not a lot of them.
What did they do? Why are they illegal?
So that's kind of an interesting thing. So let me just give a quick little bit of background on them. They were founded in 1870 at Wesleyan University as an offshoot of the Skull and Bones Society, which I'm sure you've heard of. That's the Yale fraternity that George W. Bush and George Bush Sr. and various other influential politicians have belonged to. They have the ritual that supposedly involves using Geronimo's skull that was stolen from New Mexico.
Oh my God.
So they're all racist and awful.
Yeah. So Theta Nu Epsilon was outlawed on most campuses due to overtly trying to rig not just college, but also town and city elections. And,
what?
Yeah. And then
wow.
No, they're still super influential in places like the University of Alabama, where they're referred to as the Machine.
Oh my God.
They have a lot to say there. They're still like, segregationist or white supremacist.
Oh, geez, Louise.
Kind of lost my train of thought there. Yeah, so they're bad news, and they were bad enough that they got declared illegal at UNM in the 30s and lots of other places, but they still stuck around, and they became active in their illegal form in the late 30s. On December 8th of 19. Well, hold on. Let me just relate this back to the Estufa. They seem to have a real problem with the Pi Kappa Alphas. And I don't exactly know why this was, but they were constantly vandalizing the Estufa at this point. And then in the late 1930s, they kidnapped the editor of the Daily Lobo on December 8th, 1937, brought him out to the West Mesa, beat him up, forcibly cut his hair, and left him tied to a post.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. The perpetrators were apparently caught by the university, but then let go without their identities ever being revealed or anything like that.
That's mob assault right there. That's not.
Yeah.
Cool.
So here's the Estufa during its Pi Kappa Alpha. Well, it's still Pi Kappa Alpha, but early on, it's got the big Pi Kappa Alpha there. And here it is after some vandalism done by Theta Nu Epsilon. You can see that looks like a 1, the word 1, but it is in fact a theta, a nu, and an epsilon. So something that they did attracted the ire. Apparently they were constantly like kicking holes in the Estufa and so forth.
Gosh.
Again, things get quiet because of World War II. Campus life kind of dies down to nothing. Then when students start coming back after World War II, there's increasing like frat activity. And on April 11th, 1946, the Albuquerque Journal reported that the Estufa had been set on fire for the 3rd time in 3 months, quote, climaxing a long series of thefts and vandalism on the campus. So this kind of weird war that they were having with Theta Nu Epsilon and Pi Kappa Alpha was continuing. And then apparently they were able to set it on fire for the third time. Whoever was either in Theta Nu Epsilon or purporting to be in Theta Nu Epsilon launched, they performed a robbery downtown at the El Fidel Hotel in order to attract attention away from the Estufa while other members set the Estufa on fire, supposedly pouring enough gasoline that it was actually like running down the front ramp here.
Ugh.
Oh my
Whoa.
gosh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
In the paper, the journal, the UNM administration blames it on two organizations, Theta Nu Epsilon, which we've already talked about, and BAT, which I've never been able to find any more information about than what is in this this newspaper article. BAT, said the administrator at UNM, was women students who were interested in vandalism.
That's
So-
like amazing.
Wow.
I couldn't find any pictures of them, obviously, but I'd like to think this is what they looked like.
Ew. I could see that.
But yeah, I've never been able to find any more information about BAT, but I think that was the super coolest thing.
Amazing.
And I'd like to think that they were setting it on, if BAT had anything to do with it, that they were setting it on fire because they wanted to get inside and they thought it stuck.
That, I wonder what it's for.
I don't know.
Huh,
I know.
if anything.
So 3 students were arrested for setting the Estufa on fire. They were arrested because they were on the scene watching the flames and they smelled of gasoline.
Whoa.
They were later let go without any sort of charges. In September of that year, I like this article, the Estufa was set on fire for the 4th time
Irks.
that year. They're very irked. And if this nonsense doesn't stop, somebody's going to get hurt, said Fire Chief Art West.
Art's not wrong.
Art.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, here's Theta Nu Epsilon's logo.
Oh, they think they're so edgy and tough.
I know.
They're like the historic 4chan
No kidding.
Yeah,
Edgelords of the past.
edgelords.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They used to have the skull and crossbones because they were
There's no-
affiliated,
Felt the dark web.
but they replaced the crossbones with these keys,
Huh,
and then they stabbed it with a knife to look awesome.
yeah.
And this was how they apparently dressed sometimes.
Jeez. Guys.
All right. Not a good look.
Not. Yeah.
Not
But
a great-
fitting with what we know of their awfulness, they probably took that right from the Klan or something like that.
Well,
Ugh.
in the Daily Lobo was particularly against them, and
Huh.
often referred to them as the baby KKK.
Huh.
Really.
Yeah. So they
Good for the Lobo.
Jeez.
Speaking truth to power, even back then. Yeah.
They've really. Yeah.
after the Daily Lobo editor was kidnapped in the 30s, I like this article. It's not the policy of the Lobo to print anonymous communications. Neither is it our policy to submit to intimidation or violence. For that reason, we print the following note, which was received by the editor in the afternoon mail on Friday. Mr. Lyle Sanders, what happened Wednesday night is just a sample. Don't put this in the paper if you like to be healthy. So that was what was going on in the late 30s at UNM.
Oh my God.
So then we have another quiet period until the early 60s. And this is kind of like the craziest story of them all in my mind. So in the late 1960s, civil rights, there's like civil rights demonstrations all over the country. There's a lot of like progressive politics happening. The Daily Lobo is taking the local fraternities, some of the local fraternities, to task for having official clauses in their charters that prohibit students of color from joining them. And the responses to that, to the articles about the language prohibiting students of color, are kind of hilarious. The fraternities like immediately start writing it, and it's like, well, that's just something old, and we would totally let like students of color into the fraternities, but there wasn't a single one at this point. This is 1962. It's an election. During the elections for the following years, Associated Students of the University of New Mexico, there is a slate called the Progressive Students Party with the graduate student, Bronx native Edward Lewis, who is Black, as the presidential candidate. I believe the very first ASUNM presidential candidate who was Black prior to that. And several fraternities are on that slate. Like, they have representatives on that slate. Like, they, are supporting him. At the same time, the head of the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the editorial board of the Albuquerque Journal are calling for an investigation into the University of New Mexico as harboring communists.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a super fraught time. And then on April 3rd, in the run-up to this election at ASUNM, let's see. Here's Ed Lewis, by the way, running for the ASUNM Student Council presidency. April 3rd of 1962, this happens. Terrorists hit UNM. Fire bombs are thrown in through windows at the fraternities who have candidates on the Progressive Student Party's slate. Another round of Theta Nu Epsilon vandalism goes up on walls all over the campus. Signs appear on the campus that read, "If Ed Lewis gets elected, he'll be a victim of the KKK."
Jeez.
The Daily Lobo is broken into, equipment's destroyed, things are set on fire. The wall is vandalized with pretty much the worst slur you can think of. Ed Lewis is asked.
McGarity.
Yeah, I know, Michael McGarity. Also, the most hilarious juxtaposition of headlines ever. Terrorists hit UNM. Extreme petting must stop, says dormitory council. And yeah, written by Michael McGarity, the mystery author.
Wait, not the Michael McGarity.
Yeah, it is.
The Michael McGarity.
Yeah, I've seen that article, like him talking about it online or something somewhere.
And I am a Michael McGarity scholar.
Oh, really?
Does he still own? Like, does he like that he wrote that article, or?
Extreme petting must stop. Just to go on a little tangent, I followed this article a little bit too. So, I mean, obviously, like, it's about the girls in Hakona dormitory and their boyfriends stopping by. And their solution at Hakona dormitory was to, like, have a network of snitches, of girl snitches who would tell on ladies who were spending too much time with their boyfriends and report back. But not to take away too much from the bombing.
But no, your eye goes to that headline next.
Yeah, it's just like, why would they choose to put both of the? And it doesn't even look. It looks like terrorists hit UNM, Hakona Hall put on closed week hours. Extreme petting must stop. Kind of looks like they're all part of the same article. So, a pity about the Lobos page layout, but whatever.
But good coverage of.
I think that's so funny.
Yeah.
I can't.
So Ed Lewis. Lewis was reached for comment by the Lobo, and he said, "I prefer just to ignore it and continue running the campaign."
The poor guy being terrorized, man. That's like,
absolutely.
No wonder they called that frat the baby KKK. They were.
Yeah.
Their pointy hats.
The next day after this, a slew of letters pour into the Lobo, blaming the Lobo for having stirred up racial tensions on.
Oh my gosh.
This. Yeah. It's funny. It's definitely a lot of this is the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Kind of stuff. So what does this have to do with the Estufa, right? Well, a few days later, on April 25th, my birthday, although my birthday was 14 years after this happened, April 25th, 1962, 4 current members and 1 past member of Pi Kappa Alpha, plot twist, were arrested, including this guy, Bob St. Clair, who was the president of the senior class at UNM and the chairman of the Student Standards Board. He and the other 4 admitted to the bombings, as well as having taken part in multiple burglaries throughout the city, including stealing $2,000 in 1962 money from KNME and jacking the coin boxes at various laundromats. And they stored all the stolen goods and made the bombs in the Estufa.
Oh,
He's a petty thief and a racist.
jeez.
Yep, totally a petty thief and a racist. But here's what I'm wondering. Theta Nu Epsilon was at war with Pi Kappa Alpha in the 40s. What happened? Did Theta Nu Epsilon like form some kind of alliance with Pi Kappa Alpha? Did these guys try to was this a ploy to pin it on Theta Nu Epsilon? Who knows?
Maybe World War II happened and they grew up and things just. Wait, what year was this? What was it?
This was 62.
Oh, 62, never mind. Okay.
So
yeah, no kidding. Well, maybe they just grew up, because that's what happens with you can see tagging cycles connected to people being in town, sometimes connected with UNM,
Right, but was there an official Pi Kappa Alpha affiliation with Theta Nu Epsilon at this point, is what I'm wondering, or were these guys just using that as their cover?
I have only heard bad stories from UNM's frats. I do not know. Every student I ever taught there that was in the frats was a total lunkhead.
Oh,
I mean, they were like, I mean, no, I mean, no, I found the humanity
sure.
Everybody, but it was just I've got these terrible impulses to just follow my id, and this group will just totally.
Right. Well, you have these institutions that promote a certain behavior, and people tend to do that, I guess.
And they're misogynistic, and they're totally creepy. They all, have a date rape drug hookup, I'm sure. They're just
Yeah.
I've heard so many stories like that, and then there's so many stories of suicide and binge drinking deaths and things like that out of them.
Jeez.
It's really just a nasty culture from everything I've heard.
Well,
anyway.
So APD charged these guys with 50 counts of burglary, but no charges having to do with the bombings or the destruction at UNM. They chose not to pursue those charges. Don't ask me. Ed Lewis, the candidate whom they were targeting, wound up losing the presidency to the self-proclaimed moderate party at UNM.
Wow.
Pi Kappa Alpha did get suspended on April 30th. However, 1 month later, it was reinstated for the following year on the condition that there was a regular inspection of the Estufa by university personnel.
Whoa.
Not women. Here's a quote from Earl Watkins, the National Executive Secretary of Pi Kappa Alpha, stating that suspending the chapter was unfair. He said, "This is an attack on a minority group."
What?
And there are lots of good innocent boys in this chapter. And then guess what happened to these five students who were charged with the burglaries and the bombing?
What?
All charges against them were dismissed 1 year later, despite 2 of them having pled guilty in court.
Wow.
That's.
But white privilege is a myth.
Yeah.
And, wow, that's amazing.
I do kind of have okay, this part of the story blew my mind.
What? There's more mind-blowing parts?
One more mind-blowing part. So Ed Lewis, the candidate for the Progressive Student Party, graduated from UNM. He got his graduate degree from the Anderson School of Management. He became a banker. He worked at the First National Bank, which is behind me here. Then he moved to New York. And then in 1969, believing that there needed to be a venue for more Black voices, but not necessarily just political, but in lifestyle and so forth. Let's see if I can get there. Here he is now, by the way. He founded Essence Magazine.
Really?
Yeah, the people who came up with the Essence Awards, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Whoa.
Yeah, he founded Essence Magazine, and he ran it until 2005, at which point he sold it to Time.
Dang.
What's his name?
Ed Lewis.
So this is the guy who ran and lost at UNM because
This
of
was
the
the
racism.
guy. This was
Back
the
in
targeted
1962.
back in 1962.
What? That's
Holy
crazy.
moly.
That did not. You like researched a shed that you drive by and found out like this tiny story that has
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
all this stuff.
Because
Crazy.
I've looked into this story before, and I don't know if I just didn't like look up what happened to Ed Lewis.
Oh my God.
This should be common knowledge. In 1997, he became the first African-American chairman of the Magazine Publishers of America. He served on Barack
Wow.
Obama's board of advisors for the Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities.
Oh my gosh.
There he is. So
That's
he kind of
awesome.
got the
Thank
last
you, Ed,
laugh.
for
Well, UNM's lost for not having him in
seriously.
a leadership position there.
The Estufa, let's go back to that for a moment. In the 70s, it was slated for demolition, but it wound up not being demolished. In 2002, it was broken into. And soon after that, long missing items from different University of New Mexico organizations mysteriously reappeared.
Whoa.
Because they'd been stored in the Estufa. They'd been robbing the entire time. Like the story starts with the Isleta
Dude,
robbery.
that's-
It's got this crazy burglary ring thing that they were doing.
Weird.
And then in 2002, they got broken into, and their stuff, which belonged to other organizations on campus, got returned. There were numerous allegations against Pike over the years. Their latest suspension ended in January of 2019, which was 1 year after all Greek activities on campus were placed on social restriction for a slew of allegations, including sexual assault and
oh. Let's rename the Estufa the Ed Lewis
Oh, what a good idea.
place, you
I
know.
like
shit,
that.
man.
Yeah, is there anything named on UNM campus after this famous alumni that like,
There's a scholarship.
oh, there
He's
is?
got a scholarship, but that's, because he gave a bunch of money for there to be a
Right.
scholarship. It's not like UNM went out of its way to honor him.
Right.
He returns
should.
from time to time to Albuquerque and delivers speeches and
That's cool.
so forth. So
We have one question about a break-in. Matt Royball asks, did they ever find out who broke in 2002? That was mysterious. I was a student then.
yeah,
Oh.
well, that's what we're wondering. As far as I can tell, they never did. That
So could it
this
have been a
break-in-
rival frat or
it
was
certainly
it?
could have been.
Wow.
It's still being used by frats then.
Yeah, it's still being used by Pi Kappa Alpha. There's still an organization on campus.
Lame.
So I think they ought to give it to the African American Student Union.
What a great idea. It could be
Great
a
idea.
library or whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, a clubhouse room.
That'd be good. So that's my story tonight.
That's great, man. And so well researched. And whoa.
Yeah.
So what happened to the horrible people that didn't get prosecuted? Did you ever find anything out about their lives beyond the story?
I did a little cursory research into them, but I kind of didn't care.
Interesting. Yeah.
I couldn't find out if anything in particular happened
They
to
became
them.
drifters from the land until they
Yeah.
broken.
Exactly.
I it's also weird the echoes with today and
Right?
know,
It's a super relevant
Yeah.
story, it turns out.
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you going to write an essay or something about the Estufa that'll tie in with your other topics? I mean,
What do you mean? Like for the
I don't know. Like maybe you could. Would do you see your memoir expanding into writing about something local like that?
I don't know what the hell's going on with my memoir.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I'd love to collect some of these stories into a
Oh,
a
totally.
City on the Edge book. I don't see why we couldn't
that'd
do
be
that at some
that's
point.
great. Yeah,
Another good idea.
totally.
I did do a story in New Mexico Magazine like this last month, the back
Oh.
page, which is about the Estufa. It
Oh,
doesn't
that's
get into any of that.
Oh,
Doesn't
okay.
get in. They were like, no controversy. It's like,
Oh,
okay,
really?
okay. It was a building. It was made in 1909. You can't go inside. Like that was like pretty much the whole article. It's like 75
That's fine.
words.
Jessica McCory Reno says, "Real talk, it was Ty that broke in."
I kind of wish I broke in. Mike, you went by one time and the door was open.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" But my
Yeah.
kids were late to a birthday party, and they're like, "No, we've got to go to the party." And
Dang.
and now some of them regret it too. They're like, because we drive
Yeah.
by that a bunch, like and it connects to the steam tunnels, which go for 6 levels underneath Albuquerque, right?
Do you think it does?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Remember when we did the secret UNM event? There was that bandit that was robbing UNM.
Yeah.
And,
did he get in there?
And it was connected with that at the steam tunnels. I know there was some connection.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We have to try to see it sometime. One of us.
There's
let's not say anything incriminating. That's
there was a steam tunnel tour a while ago, but I kind of didn't care that day or something.
Yeah, the steam tunnels used to be such a this mysterious place that you could go into, but now they've got automated cameras and stuff. You can't get in there. I mean,
really? It's still cool to see out of the way spots and secret worlds and stuff, but it's because nobody knows what they're walking over. My brother Jeff toured an 1868 subway underneath Manhattan that's just been sitting down there, and
the pneumatic tube.
It was the first version of this tunnel used horse-drawn cars.
Well, there was a pneumatic one too that it operated on the same principle as the bank. Those cylinders at the bank. Yeah. So
I used to love those as a kid.
They had a subway built on that same principle in New York. It only went for 2 blocks or something.
I like it. That's cool.
It takes a lot of wind power.
I'm doing a kind of a Dostoevsky deep dive lately. This is his first novel, which I got recently from a book giveaway. But look at this in the back here. This says printed in the United Soviet Socialist Republic.
Oh, what is it? Okay. It's literally from the USSR. How cool is that?
Wow.
Pretty neat.
There's no date, but it's old.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, this was fun and help me blow up my spirits a little.
What I want to come out of this is freaking Ed Lewis, man.
No kidding. That guy's awesome. And all these other people are terrible. And
they really were. And then I just couldn't believe the influential positions of these guys. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I can totally believe it, but it was hitting the nail on the head. It just seemed a little too pat there. You know what I mean?
That racism did not go away, unfortunately.
No, it did not. So.
Also, Jessica does say, I heard no denial from Ty about you breaking in. So we still
man.
To, 2002.
I feel like I better not leave any room for error here, just in case Theta Nu Epsilon's watching. Oh wait, then again, maybe they'd be into it. I don't know. I guess I'll leave it ambiguous then, just because.
I'm fine with those dorks as enemies. They should come for us.
Yeah, totally.
God, though, they sound powerful.
Well, they took that one editor out to the mesa and beat him up.
I don't think that. What was I going to say? I don't think that we should admit to any crimes or think about doing any crimes in an open way.
Yeah.
In general, oh my God,
policy. But
what's happening?
Did you hear that?
No.
Did you hear a government digital voice that we didn't hear?
God, we are on Facebook right now.
I'm getting tapped here. I was trying to find something to close out the show with here.
Thanks to everyone who listened and
thank you guys so much.
And,
we love you.
Stand up, Albuquerque. Don't let these fascists take over our town. Let's seriously. Let's like be in the street. Let's be loud about this. Do not normalize any of this.
Keep your eyes open, but don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Be like Captain Von Trapp. Rip up that flag and stand up for what's right. That's what I say.
Gosh, I kind of wanted to end on that. End with that 1971.
Oh, nice.
Broadcast that I played the other night, but I can't.
Oh yeah, that was
it.
really interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
They took it down already.
Maybe.
I found the origins of Uptown, basically.
Not Uptown. That was downtown.
Oh, I thought it said. Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the one right on the edge of downtown, on the eastern edge.
I thought it's when they built those two like silvery buildings over by the Marriott over at Louisiana and ABQ Uptown.
Well, in particular, the one that I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. Well.
No, it was not. God damn it! I want to find this.
Maybe I didn't give it my full attention.
Well, all right. Too bad.
Okay.
We're not going to be able to end on a bang here.
No.
But we've got something for you for the next one that you're
That's right.
Not gonna want to miss.
You know what?
What?
I'm going to play this. All right. This will be our outgoing video. So, share screen.
I don't know what Ty's going to show. It's not Hellraiser, is it? You made us watch all of Hellraiser last time.
God.
Oh, I enjoyed it. But
it's a good movie, actually, the first one. And
it is.
The second one's kind of good, too, actually.
A battle to find work that some say isn't fought fairly, as Jane Wells explains.
And get ready, here they are, the Shakers!
The music is great. The bands are all great. I've never heard a bad band down here in Albuquerque.
What do you think about the music scene here in Albuquerque?
It could be better. It's real good, but it could be a lot better.
What's hot, what's not, and who decides? Top 40 is in, anything else is out.
And who decides? A lot of people say it's up to one man.
He's an agent named Joe Buffalino.
I love it.
The infamous Joe Buffalino. If you know anything about Albuquerque's nightlife in the 80s, this guy was in charge of it all. Everybody hated him.
Liverpool.
Wait, for real?
Of the Beatles may be this group, Sassy Jones, the biggest band in the state with national acclaim.
We cater to the people. I think as bottom line, we give the people exactly what they want.
But he would only allow bands that played covers.
Jones. So do the clubs. That often means dealing exclusively with Joe Buffalino and employing only his bands. That leaves other bands out in the cold. The Shakers couldn't get much work until Buffalino took them on. They would like to play less top 40, but they really can't.
Screening out a lot.
I think it's remembered as a low point in the scene.
And making it difficult for anybody that's just a little bit different to break into the scene. And that's what's unfair.
Buffalino says he builds bands. He gives them the songs to play off the charts. He often tells them what to wear. The bands always work and make money, and Buffalino usually gets a 15% cut.
If there's something wrong with it, I don't see it.
But some bands say since all of the major clubs in town are so-called Buffalino clubs and mostly play top 40, musicians with something else to offer want to leave.
The widest crowd Albuquerque has ever had.
Is motivation a lot of times. So
since the last Pi Kappa Alpha meeting.
Yes, you got to use everything you've learned just to try to keep going up.
But is Albuquerque ready for more jazz and original music? Buffalino doesn't think so. He says his bands have to answer to a higher power, the club owners.
They might as well own grocery stores. You know, they know
house shows
about
going
music.
on.
They're not music critics.
A lot of bands aren't crazy about club owners. The feeling's mutual.
They'll always be around, but I think they're going to die out.
Our parents talk about like Gotham shows.
It's art versus business. Some want to make music, others want to make money, and occasionally they want to make both. Club owners say they have a tremendous overhead, so they have to bring in the bands they feel will get the customers coming in and buying drinks.
A liquor license these days costs about $100,000, but most of these club owners bought them when they were $300,000. You have to sell a lot of booze to pay off a debt like that.
Jeez.
So
it is
what
an
does
unfair
a club
system, the
owner
liquor
look for in
license
a band?
system.
I didn't realize it was so...
How they dress, how they are professional, their music. But to me, their music is sometimes second, compared to how they look and how they act.
The major club owners usually come to Joe Buffalino, the biggest booking agent in the state. Some bands complain that Buffalino and the club owners lock them into playing
He does
only
have an
top 40
amazing
music,
mustache, though.
and that those who don't play songs like Beat It don't get much work. Buffalino says top 40
We have
is
to
what
do this
people want.
episode. I feel like you guys have been talking about
The Legend of Joe Buffalino?
Yeah.
You can have him on. He's still around.
No, I think he died. I think his sons are around.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Musicians know they are hired to help sell booze. But what about the drug scene? Is it a problem among bands here? Sassy Jones is considered one of the cleaner bands, but even they admit the problem is widespread.
There's always a presence of it. There's always an abundance.
Holy
there's
crap.
always people
drugs and music, live music?
Right.
Some musicians say
There are
off
two bands
camera
in
that
town?
playing
Come
clubs
on.
night after night singing the same songs makes it tough to stay energetic. They say the drugs sometimes help. But what's in the future? Will bands
Dan.
here ever get the opportunity to play regularly, someplace that doesn't have the pressures of selling drinks and keeping club owners happy?
93 KOB FM, 10 minutes past 4 o'clock. It's your friend TJ Lambert, and this is The Weekend.
The battle of
TJ
the bands
Lambert?
in New Mexico depends a lot on
That
what
TJ
goes on
Trout,
in this
like,
room.
I'm wondering.
What the bands play in the
his
clubs
first
is
name or
usually
something?
decided here by what's popular on the radio. Since most of the biggest stations here have basically a top 40 format, that's apparently what people want to hear. Few stations do anything different, and only a couple ever play music by local bands.
The radio stations, of course, they're worse than the clubs.
There are a few places where you can hear something other than top 40, but club owners don't make as much money off it. Musicians think the situation could change.
I think the interest is out there. I think a lot of people are afraid to take a chance as far as perhaps opening a nightclub with an alternative of music.
Bands say there is more variety in Santa Fe.
Up in Santa Fe, where people kind of dance like James Thurber drawings. They do that kind of stuff. They're well accepted.
But there's less work there with only a few clubs, and it doesn't look like anything's going to change soon. In fact, local bands may soon hear the club scene strike a sour chord.
You're going to see less and less live bands. It's going to video.
So some bands are getting ready to leave. The Shakers have been together for over 3 years.
Lisa
The group
Barrow
broke
says
up last
this looks
week.
like an
Band
interesting
members
story,
Nancy Howell
too.
and Doug Pearson
Yeah,
are going to New
totally.
York to try
Buffalino,
and make it
so-
there.
Will you ever come back?
I think
Carl Peterson used
I
to
come
talk
back
about
here to
Joe
live,
Buffalino
but
being a
not
huge...
to play.
Yeah.
I think this is a future episode.
They fear other talent
Yeah.
will also leave unless bands here are allowed to make a living and still be creative. Club owners say that will happen only when they feel their customers will pay for it. Jane Wells, Eyewitness News Network.
Well, there you go. Oh, there's the damn thing I wanted to show earlier, but I'm glad we showed this one instead, actually.
Yeah.
Well, let's save that one.
Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. All right. Well, shall we bid everyone adieu?
Fun. Good night, everybody. This feels unreal. It feels like I'm just talking to Ty and Nora. But
It's very strange, isn't it? But
Hello.
hey, Lisa chimed in. Our friend Jessica Reno,
oh, that's
Holly, Matt Roybal.
Jen
you know,
Panhorst.
Yeah.
it was good. It's good to kind of do this in a way that I think, we're
Yeah.
recording them this way anyway. We may as well put them up live.
That's true.
Yeah.
I figure. Take a few comments.
Do you edit them at all before you post the? Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks.
Good night, guys.
Everyone.
Good night.
Let me see if I can figure out how to turn this thing off.
Sleep with one eye open because now
Theta Nu Epsilon is out
Theta
there. Yeah.
knows what we know.
Spiritual descendants.
And don't forget about BAT.
No, geez, it's maybe the biggest. I want to join BAT though, so I hope they
Yeah, I
contact
know.
me.
You could
I'm
bring
here,
BAT.
BAT.
Or someone could. Yeah.
BAT's my favorite organization out of this whole story.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
See ya.